The moment my girlfriend stepped out of the room, everything tilted. She said she forgot something in the car. Keys, maybe. She kissed my cheek without really looking at me, already halfway gone. The door clicked shut. Then her older sister reached out, caught the front of my jacket between two fingers, and said, quiet but steady, "Stay with me instead." It wasn't flirtatious. That's the part that stuck. It sounded like a decision she'd already made. We were in her family's repair shop, a narrow place that smelled like oil and old coffee. The radio hummed low behind the counter, some talk show nobody was listening to. I'd been coming there for months, ever since my girlfriend asked me to help her sister redo the office computer. Simple stuff. Software updates. File cleanup. I was good with that, with staying useful and unnoticed. Her sister, Mara, ran the shop. Mid-40s, maybe older. She wore her dark hair pulled back tight. No makeup except a clean swipe of lipstick she reapplied without a mirror. She moved like she knew exactly how much space she took up and didn't apologize for any of it. When she spoke, people listened. When she went quiet, the room seemed to lean in. I'd always been aware of her in a distant way. Like you notice a storm on the horizon but don't think it'll reach you. When she grabbed my collar, it wasn't rough. Just enough pressure to make a point. I froze. My first thought was that I'd done something wrong. Missed a step. Touched something I shouldn't have. "I just need to show you something," she said, releasing me immediately. As if she hadn't crossed a line. Or maybe she knew she had and didn't care. She walked toward the back office, heels clicking once on the concrete before she slipped them off. Barefoot now. I followed, feeling stupid for how aware I was of the space between us. The office was cramped, lit by a single lamp that cast everything in a tired yellow. Papers stacked too neatly. A plant that looked like it survived out of spite. She leaned over the desk to point at the screen. Close enough that I could smell her soap. Something clean. Ordinary. My hands hovered uselessly at my sides. "This file," she said. "It keeps disappearing." I leaned in, shoulder brushing hers. She didn't move away. The air felt thicker, like before a storm breaks. I clicked through folders, explaining as I went, talking more than I needed to. Filling the quiet. She watched my hands instead of the screen. At one point, she laughed. Soft, surprised. "You get nervous when you explain things," she said. "I don't." I said too fast. She raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. Just nodded, like she was filing that away. From the front of the shop came the sound of the door opening. My girlfriend's voice floated in, bright and careless. Mara straightened immediately, stepping back, the moment snapping shut like it had never existed. But as I packed up my bag, she caught my eye. Held it a second longer than necessary. Her mouth opened like she was going to say something else. Then she didn't. That night, lying in bed, I kept seeing her hand on my collar. Not the touch. The look on her face right after. Like she'd almost said something true and decided against it. The second time it happened was a week later, and it felt heavier because I was expecting it. My girlfriend was late. She texted that she'd be an hour, maybe more. I was already at the shop, sleeves rolled up, waiting for Mara to tell me what needed fixing this time. The place was quieter than usual. Rain ticked against the metal door, steady and thin. The radio was off. Just the hum of the old fridge in the corner. Mara handed me a box of cables without meeting my eyes. "The security system's acting up," she said. "If you've got time." I did. I always did for her. I nodded and followed her to the back, noticing how she walked slower than last time. One hand kept rubbing her wrist, like it ached. Her shoulders were tight, pulled up toward her ears. She stayed standing while I worked, arms crossed. Guarded. Different from before. When I asked a question, she answered with just enough words to be polite. No extra. No opening. I talked anyway. About the rain. About how the bus had been late. About nothing. She made a sound once that might have been a laugh, but it faded before it landed. At some point, she sighed. Not loud. Just enough to notice. She dropped into the chair across from me and pressed her fingers to her eyes. "Sorry," she said. "Long day." I glanced up. Her hands were rough, nails short and clean. A thin cut along one knuckle. I wondered how long it had been there. "You don't have to apologize," I said. She looked at me then. Really looked. Her eyes were tired in a way that felt earned. "People say that," she said. They usually want something anyway. I didn't answer. I just went back to the screen. Let the silence stretch. It felt like the right thing. After a minute, she spoke again. Quieter. My sister leans on you a lot. It wasn't a question. I don't mind, I said, then wished I'd said less. Her mouth tightened, then relaxed. She nodded like she was agreeing with herself, not me. For a second, she looked older than before. Not in a bad way, just exposed. When I finished, she stood and leaned over my shoulder to check the screen. Closer than necessary. Her hair brushed my cheek. She smelled faintly of coffee and rain. That should hold, I said. Good, she replied, but she didn't move away. Her hand rested on the back of my chair. I could feel the weight of it there. Steady, deliberate. From the front of the shop, the door creaked. No footsteps followed, just the sound of rain again. Mara cleared her throat and stepped back, but not before her fingers slid off the chair and brushed my shoulder. Barely anything. Accidental, maybe. I watched her walk away and realized my hands were shaking. Later, when I tried to sleep, I kept thinking about how tired she'd looked, and how, for just a second, she'd let me see it. It happened late, on a night I shouldn't have stayed. The shop was closed. Lights off out front. Just the office lamp on in back, throwing a dull circle across the desk. The rain had turned heavier, loud enough that it filled the pauses for us. My girlfriend had called earlier, said she was crashing at a friend's place. Don't wait up, she'd said casual. Like that settled something. Mara had asked if I could finish setting up the backup system. Only if you're not in a rush, she added, already unlocking the office. I wasn't. She ordered takeout we barely touched. The food sat between us, cooling, steam fading. She ate a few bites, then pushed the container aside. I noticed she kept her jacket on, even though the room was warm. Arms folded, then unfolded. Restless. You ever regret staying somewhere too long? She asked, eyes on the window, not me. I hesitated. That felt like a door I shouldn't walk through. Sometimes, I said, but leaving doesn't always fix it. She let out a breath that sounded like a laugh if you didn't listen closely. No, she said. It doesn't. Her phone buzzed on the desk. She glanced at it, face tightening. Didn't pick it up. The screen lit again. Same name. I didn't see it clearly, just the way her jaw set. You don't have to. I started. I know, she said too quick. She flipped the phone face down. It's just noise. The rain surged, hard against the roof. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I could hear the clock ticking. My own breathing felt too loud. She reached for her coffee, realized it was cold, then wrapped both hands around the mug anyway. Like she needed something solid. Her fingers trembled. Just a little. You make things quieter, she said, still not looking at me. I swallowed. I don't think I do. You do, she said. Finally, she turned. Her eyes held mine longer than before. Not searching, measuring. There was a space between us that felt charged, like it had weight. I could have said something then. Anything honest. I didn't. I stayed where I was, hands flat on my knees, reminding myself of every reason this was wrong. Her sister. My girlfriend. The mess it would make. The door to the shop rattled suddenly. Wind. Just the wind. We both flinched, then laughed at the same time. The sound surprised us. Too loud. Too close. Mara stood and moved toward the window, then stopped halfway. She turned back, slower this time. Came close enough that I could see the faint lines at the corners of her eyes. The way she held herself, like she was bracing for impact. She lifted her hand, hesitated, then rested it against my chest. Light. Testing. Her thumb pressed once, like she was checking my pulse. I didn't move. She leaned in, just slightly. Close enough that I could feel her breath, warm against my cheek. Mara, I said, not finishing it. Her phone buzzed again. She pulled her hand back like she'd been burned and stepped away. The moment snapped, leaving the air cold and thin. She turned her back to me and said, "You should go." I stood there a second longer than I should have, my heart still racing, my body leaning forward even as my feet finally moved toward the door. The next few days felt wrong in a way I couldn't name. I still came by the shop, still fixed things, still talked about nothing. But the air had shifted. Mara kept her distance now. Polite. Professional. Like she'd drawn a line so sharp it cut the room in half. On Friday, She asked me to stay late again. Her voice was careful, like she'd practiced the sentence. We didn't turn on the radio this time. The office light was softer than usual, one bulb flickering like it might give up. She stood by the window with her arms folded, watching the street even though nothing was happening out there. I sat across from her, not touching the computer, just waiting. This can't keep feeling like this, she said finally. I didn't pretend not to know what she meant. Like what? She turned slowly. Her face looked tired, stripped down. No lipstick tonight. Her hair loose, falling out of its clip. Like I'm holding my breath, she said. Like I'm one bad decision away from ruining something I don't even understand. I nodded once. My throat felt tight. I've been thinking the same thing. That surprised her. I could tell by the way her eyebrows lifted, just slightly. You have? Yeah, I said. About what we're doing. Or not doing. Or pretending we're not doing. She let out a small, shaky breath and sat down across from me. Not close. Not far. Just enough space to make it hurt. I'm not supposed to feel this way, she said. About you. About anyone. I've built my life around not needing this. Needing what? I asked quiet. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes dropped to her hands. She pressed her thumb into her palm like she was grounding herself. Being seen, she said, by someone who doesn't already expect me to fail. The words landed heavy. I leaned forward without thinking, then stopped myself. Kept my hands to myself. I don't expect anything from you, I said. I just notice you. She looked up at that. Really looked. Her eyes shined, but she didn't cry. She never did things halfway. That's the problem, she said. You notice. And I don't know how to exist like that anymore. We sat in silence after that. Not awkward. Tense. Like something alive between us. The clock ticked. A car passed outside. Somewhere, a door slammed. I don't want to hurt her, I said eventually. I know, Mara replied. And I don't want to be the reason you hate yourself later. I swallowed. Do you think I won't anyway? That got her. She flinched, just a little. Her hand moved across the desk, stopped halfway, then pled back. Restraint written into every inch of her posture. We can't pretend this is nothing, she said. No, I agreed. We can't. She stood, walked past me, and opened the office door. Held it there. Didn't look back. In a voice barely above a whisper, she said, I don't trust myself around you. And somehow, that hurt more than if she'd said goodbye. The shift didn't come from a confession. It came from a box. She asked me to help move some old files from a cabinet in the storage room. Nothing dramatic about it. Just metal drawers that stuck, dust that clung to your hands. The kind of task that gives you something to do with your eyes so you don't have to look at each other. One drawer jammed halfway open. Mara tugged it once, then let go, frustrated. I crouched to get a better angle, pulled harder than I meant to, and the whole thing slid free too fast. Papers spilled. A few folders. A small framed photo that landed face down. Careful, she said sharp. Then softer. She stopped herself. Bent down and picked up the frame before I could. Held it to her chest like she'd caught it falling off a ledge. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't mean to. It's fine. She stood there a second longer than necessary, then turned the photo back toward me. Not offering it. Just not hiding it either. It was her, younger. Early 30s maybe. Standing next to a man with his arm around her shoulders. They were both smiling in that unguarded way people do when they don't know what's coming yet. That's Daniel, she said. My husband. The words settled in the room. Past tense. She didn't explain it. Didn't have to. He died, she added after a beat. Not dramatic. Just factual. 8 years ago. I didn't know, I said. No, she replied. You wouldn't. She set the frame back in the drawer, face down this time. Closed it gently, like you'd close a door without waking someone on the other side. I don't talk about him, she said. Not because it hurts. Because it doesn't anymore. And that feels worse somehow. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't rush it. I leaned against the cabinet and waited. He used to stand like you, she went on. Hands like that. Like he never knew where to put them. I looked down at my hands. Hadn't realized I'd been doing that. You don't look like him, she said quickly. That's not what I mean. It's just, she stopped, shook her head once. You remind me of who I was when things still felt open. That landed harder than anything she'd said before. We finished the task without talking much. The air felt different, thinner, like something had been removed and the space hadn't adjusted yet. When we got back to the office, her phone buzzed. She checked it, then hesitated before handing it to me. "Can you listen to this?" she asked. "I can't right now." It was a voicemail. Old, judging by the date. Her thumb hovered near the screen, then dropped. I pressed play. A man's voice filled the room. Warm, teasing. "Hey, Mara. If you're listening to this, it means I forgot to tell you something important." Which probably means it was important. I stopped it almost immediately. Looked at her. She nodded. "That's enough." We stood there, not touching, not moving. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of everything she hadn't said, everything she'd survived. As I handed her the phone back, our fingers brushed. She didn't pull away this time. She just said, very quietly, "I didn't think I'd ever feel pulled toward anyone again." And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about crossing a line. It was about reopening a door she'd locked on purpose. The collapse wasn't dramatic. No shouting. No line crossed in a way you could point to and say, "There, that's when it happened." It came on a Sunday afternoon when the shop was closed and the street outside felt paused. She'd texted asking if I could stop by to look at a billing issue. No pressure. No apology. Just an address and a time. She made tea. Forgot about it. We drank it lukewarm, sitting at opposite ends of the couch in the back office, knees angled toward each other without meaning to be. Sunlight slanted through the dusty window, catching in her hair. She looked older in that light. Softer too. "I talked to my sister," she said suddenly. My stomach tightened. About you," she said. "About me." She rubbed her thumb along the rim of the mug. "Not everything. Just enough." I waited. Let her finish. "She thinks I'm lonely," Mara continued. "She's not wrong." A pause. "She also thinks you're good." That almost made me laugh. Almost. "I told her I'm stepping back," she said. "From leaning on you. From pretending this is simple." "And are you?" I asked. She looked at me for a long time before answering. Not searching, just honest. "I don't think I can," she said. "But I don't want to pretend I don't know what this costs." I nodded. My chest felt tight, but steady. "Neither do I." We sat there, letting that land. No fixing it. No rushing to make it easier. "I'm not asking you to choose anything," she said. "I just needed you to know I'm not confused anymore." That mattered more than anything else she could have said. I shifted closer without thinking, then stopped myself. She noticed. A small smile touched her mouth. She moved the rest of the distance for both of us and sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. It felt deliberate, grounded. Her hand rested on her knee, fingers curled inward. I didn't reach for it. Not yet. After a while, she leaned forward and rested her forehead against mine. Light pressure, like a question that didn't need answering. We stayed that way, breathing in sync, the world continuing somewhere else. When I finally lifted my hand, it was just to cover hers. No interlacing fingers. No pulling her closer. Just contact. Warm. Certain. "This isn't a mistake," she said quietly. "I know," I replied. Outside, a car passed. Somewhere, a door closed. Ordinary sounds. Life going on. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. We just sat there until the light shifted, and it was time to stand up and face what we'd chosen to feel, knowing it would change things even if nothing else happened right away. When I left, she didn't say goodbye. She squeezed my hand once, let go, and watched me walk out. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. I'm telling this from a little distance now. Not years. Not enough time to turn it into something clean or wise. Just enough space to see what actually changed. People like clear endings. They want to know if we crossed the line, if everything blew up, if someone got hurt. The truth is quieter than that. My girlfriend and I ended things a few weeks later. Not because of a confession or a betrayal. We'd already been drifting. This just stopped us from pretending otherwise. It hurt, but it wasn't cruel. Sometimes honesty lands softer than silence ever did. Mara and I didn't rush into anything. That surprises people when I say it. They assume tension has to explode or vanish. Ours did neither. It settled. It learned how to breathe. We started with coffee outside the shop. Neutral ground. Daylight. We talked about small things. Work. Weather. Books she hadn't finished reading. The grief she'd learned to live beside without naming it every day. What changed in her wasn't dramatic. She didn't become lighter or suddenly happy. She became more present, less armored. She laughed more easily. She let herself sit with quiet instead of filling it with responsibility. What changed in me was harder to explain. I stopped thinking love was about intensity or proof. I learned how much restraint can carry, how choosing not to rush something can be its own kind of commitment. There were moments we pulled back, days we didn't text, conversations where we said, "This feels like too much," and listened when the other agreed. That was new for both of us. Respect that didn't feel like distance. The first time we kissed was months later. No fireworks, just a pause in the middle of a sentence, her thumb brushing my jaw like she was making sure I was real. It felt earned. It felt calm. We still sit together in silence sometimes. On her couch, on the steps behind the shop after closing, our knees touching, her head against my shoulder. Not because we're afraid to speak, but because we don't need to. If there's something I learned from all this, it's that love doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it shows up as permission, to be seen, to slow down, to choose carefully instead of impulsively. Mara once told me she thought needing someone was a weakness. Now she says it's just information, something you listen to, not something that controls you. As for me, I stopped measuring my life by what I wanted next. I started paying attention to what felt steady. This story isn't about stealing someone's sister or making a reckless choice. It's about what happens when two people notice each other at the wrong time and decide not to lie about it. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?